This is Andrea with Parking Lot Debrief. Okay, I've got some former students, now friends, now colleagues, on with me. I've wanted to talk with people, as I said, who run the gamut of people who work in this field, from seasoned interpreters to folks who've worked a few years to just graduated. And so I have some folks on here today, Savannah and Jillian, that graduated about 3.5 years ago or so. So new, but not new. Um, so I just want people to hear your perspective and maybe they can take some advice from that. If you want to give a short bio, who you are, whatever you feel like sharing. Who
Sure.
wants to go first?
I can start. I'm Savannah. I grew up in Michigan, but right after graduation, I moved to Denver, Colorado, looking for a deaf community, for more of a variety of work than where we were in before. Yeah, I guess I'll start off with that.
Yeah.
I'm Jillian, also from Michigan. Went to Lansing Community College with Savannah. Andrea was one of my professors. Shortly after graduating, I moved to Denver with Savannah, partly for fun, and partly it was a really good career move too. And now I'm living in Steamboat Springs. I took a staff job up here. No longer doing that, but that's how I landed up here. So yeah.
Yeah, and this is I don't know what the regular trajectory plan for folks is when they graduate ITPs, but most, I would imagine, most people kind of stay where they're at. Their families are there, or they went to the ITP that is in another state, but not often do people graduate and then leave. Um, which kudos, that's hard to leave your family and friends and start a new career in a new place. All brand new things that all happen at the same time. Um, why without like why move? I know Colorado's amazing. So that's why. But some people I feel may feel the same when they graduate, they kind of feel stuck or they aren't sure what's next. What would you say for
Yeah.
that?
I feel like Savannah and I were lucky in the way that we weren't totally tied down in Michigan. Like I had always kind of wanted to leave regardless of interpreting. Um, we, yeah, I didn't have a family to take care of in Michigan, so it gave me that freedom to leave. Um, and a lot of interpreters that I was working with in practicum were telling us, don't quit your day job when you leave.
Mm,
And when I moved to Colorado, I was able to quit my other job and full on
work.
interpret. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And that may be very Michigan specific, but it may be other state specific as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I guess my understanding, granted, I haven't worked as a certified interpreter in Michigan, but the jobs that we or bids that we were sent in our program is what they called it. Typically, were around the Lansing area, but also just like all over the state. So it didn't really seem like even if I moved to Lansing, even if I moved to Grand Rapids, somewhere that was remotely close to where I grew up, that I would have an opportunity to take a variety of work too at the same time. So when
Yeah.
Jillian asked me if I wanted to move, I was like, I don't see why
Let's
not.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and that's the thing. You move to DC for the work. You move to Austin, Texas for the work. Like you move to these communities. And do you want to drive the entire state of Michigan? Or do you want to drive the whole tiny city of Austin? Because that's where the work is concentrated. And Denver feels similar, where we're pretty much hanging out in the Denver area, or you move to the cities of which you get work. But a lot of folks don't have the luxury of moving. They've got kids, family, all that other stuff. So I often tell students, if you can, go, go see other stuff, go interpret in different places. Um, Literally, when you graduated, you left.
Pretty much. We graduated in May 2021, hung out for the summer, and then by October we were in Denver
Yeah. Yeah. So
and
essentially it was
working.
kind of just saving up money throughout the summer, working our side jobs that we had and then moving out and starting work immediately. But
Yeah, then you get here, you get to Denver, and often students, whether you move or not, how do I even begin? Like, where do I start? What did you do when you got here? Like, how did you even get started? It seems extremely overwhelming.
Well, we had both taken the EIPA, and
Mm,
our scores were high enough for most states, but not Michigan. So if I had stayed in Michigan, I have a 3.6. I wouldn't have been able to work, but
mhm.
Colorado is a 3.5. So I was able to work. Um, it was funny. I was on this like Colorado Facebook page for interpreting, and someone just posted, I'm an agency looking for interpreters with an EIPA, and I emailed her, and a day later had guaranteed 40 hours
Nice.
a week of work, which
Awesome.
what looking back was too much.
Yes,
Um,
you'll learn that quick, especially new.
yeah. And
We
there are pros and cons of that, but yeah, we hit the ground running.
Yeah, and it
money.
was definitely, I do want to highlight the fact that we did have Andrea as a professor for our last semester in college, something that we did not expect to just have a professor that literally lives in the state that we plan to move to. So we had a little bit of networking through that, I guess, too, and a little bit of comfort. And then just like that month before was just contacting agencies, trying to figure out what's there, what's available. I think the most difficult thing for me because I didn't sign with an educational agency right away. I was trying to sign with some of the larger agencies that had a variety of work. Um, it was really hard to find work that wasn't in medical, wasn't in legal, and had a team.
Yeah. So, social media, find those Facebook groups of those communities, and they
Hmm.
have them. Majority, almost every single one of them, every city has one. Maybe find people who know people who are there. It's important to at least know someone. I didn't know a single person when I moved here, so it's hard. And then literally just reach out to agencies.
Yeah. And have your group of people too, because you can sign on with an agency, but that might, I don't, it might not be a great agency. But if you have your trusted group of interpreters who are talking about that kind of thing, you can use your best judgment to say, I should work for this agency or I shouldn't, or maybe you'll work for them for a few years and later be like, oh, why did I do that? And now I know. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And you learn along the way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I don't know, Jillian, if you remember, but for about a month, I was trying to do it with just like one or two agencies. And Andrew was telling me, I have like 15, 20 agencies. Don't be afraid to sign with all of them. And
Hmm.
I was like, Jillian really loves the agency that she's working with. So I quickly ended up like joining some of the work that she did too. And that was really
Yeah.
helpful.
It was a really nice transition to start with the agency that we did because it was contracting work. So we were getting like that practice of going here, going there, keeping our invoices, doing the taxes. But it was also all education. And that was somewhere that I felt comfortable starting. A lot of my practicum was in education and it felt comfortable. Also, the schools that I was working in, I wasn't just the one interpreter. I
It's a
had like
team.
5 to 7 interpreters, many of them nationally certified, just a really great group to start with. So I was really lucky for that.
That's a key piece is this do newer interpreters go into education? If you do, go where there's other people,
Yep.
other support. So you're not alone. And I like the idea of you don't have to go and sign on for a full year as a staff, educational interpreter at a school system. Don't forget, folks, that agencies fill those spaces as well. And you can be part of a small pool that goes and do those things. And that's a great way to test all the spaces in a safe space that is a good match or not.
Exactly.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
what did you tell agencies? What did you tell them? I'm new. I'm moving to the state. I have EIPA. Like, what do you? I always students always ask like, how? What do I say?
I think it was a really awkward conversation to have. I was really looking forward to bringing this up too. Drawing the boundaries early on was difficult
Yes.
because boundaries are very vulnerable, especially it depends, what the agency looks like because sometimes your agency is a client or it could be a deaf consumer that you're going to interpret for. And so
Yep.
telling them, this situation I'm not comfortable with or I don't have the knowledge for it. And especially during that first year, I was just constantly asking for jobs with like a team. Just
Nice.
because if I'm weak in one area, and you will be weak in a lot of areas when you start interpreting, unfortunately, we're not already made when we graduate, but having that team to help support is
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And just knowing when you start with an agency, it took me a little while to really learn, like, I'm not their employee. If I want a day off, I'm taking that day off. Do you know what I mean? It's not, I tried at the beginning, I would have agencies say, no, you can't have the day off. It's like, well, I'm not getting all of these benefits that I would be
Right.
if that was something, if that was part of this agreement, but it's not. Um, yeah, so boundaries, it took me a little while. I was getting texts in the middle of the night of, I need you to go here. I need you to work extra hours. Yeah, it
You're
was,
just like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I was new. I was a yes man, but it took me time
That
to
was
learn
my
those boundaries.
question. Is are they asking you because you're new? Are they asking you because they need someone? Yes. But would they ask me in the same way that they would ask you? And then are they pushing you in directions in that you then have to know yourself and say, that's not a match. I can't do that. And did you do that before with the agencies?
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely had to draw some hard boundaries. And then I end up working with another agency, and it's something like, I just had this thing happen, and maybe I'm not sick, but I feel like I can't do my work today. And they're like, you don't have to explain yourself. You are a freelancer. This is you own your business essentially. You're working through us as an agency. And that was just so wonderful to hear because sometimes you don't always get that response.
Correct. And you're new, and so you want to not make people mad. I also get this question from students or new graduates, the don't quit your day job thing. You guys jumped right in and started working. Denver's not a cheap place to live. So like you could do this, right? You can start working and you made money and you don't have to disclose all that, but you made enough money to do this starting out.
Yeah, for the most part, I did have a serving job. It was
Mm.
somewhat for fun, but it was nice for the extra money too.
Yeah.
And just to meet other people outside of interpreting. Um, but going into education, the pool, I don't know if every city is like this, but it felt like the pool of interpreters taking the very basic community jobs that I felt safe doing, those were getting snatched up very quickly in the summer.
Yeah.
So I couldn't rely on interpreting for the summer. If I got a summer gig, that was awesome, but I couldn't depend on it. So I did have a serving job to get me through the summer.
Summer makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I also, up until, well, last year was the first full year that I did not have any second job. Because in the summertime, I was also taking up like working in the service industry again, just because summertime gets so slow. Now educational interpreters are also looking for work in the summer possibly, so we're competing in that market. And if we have been prioritizing the educational agencies that don't have work in the summer, that means that the other agencies who we haven't been talking to. So it was also that big realization of, oh, keeping in contact with some of these agencies and kind of trying to like make my schedule so that I'm still keeping a relationship with them. I feel like that was a big help last summer with maybe being able to get work like throughout the summer.
Yeah. And that summer lull, I feel comes just with the fact that you haven't worked that long. You don't know as many people or as many or don't have all the certifications. Because I tell you, after a handful of years, there is no lull ever again. There's no lull during the holidays. Um, and this is a question too. Did you feel pressure to take work that you were like, "Ugh," because you needed to earn money? I'm
It
Um,
sure.
There's definitely some work that I've gotten or some jobs that have been sent to me that I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable with this. So I'd contact the agency, hey, can I get more information? They give me the information back, and I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. And I feel
Nice.
like most of the time when I did that, I went in more confident. And if I wasn't a good fit for the job, I didn't realize until I was already there. And prep is another big
Yep.
component of that.
Yep. You don't know till
yeah,
you're there.
I've
It'll be
really
like,
only taken, I feel like I've only had one job where I showed up and I was like, oh, I'm underqualified for this. Luckily, my team has been a mentor to me, and so I felt safe with her. But I just told the agency I'm not doing this one job again. But I don't know. Right now, I'm in kind of that between where it's like, okay, it's really time to get out of your comfort zone. You're about to test for your BEI advanced. Like, we're going to start doing mental health things. We're going to, and just a little bit more high stakes. with prep is
Yes.
great. But in those first 2 years, being with those educational agencies was very nice because it was like, okay, here's a graduation or here's a college class. And it's like, okay, that feels like something I can, one, prepare for, and two, I'll have a team. And it's not super high stakes. I mean, everything is high stakes, of course, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not an emergency room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say about 90% of the time that I take jobs that I'm qualified for, I'm a very nervous person, so I'm usually nervous until I get to the job. 90% of the time, it's
It's
perfectly fine. And then there's
Mm.
other times where it's like, okay, I'm qualified for this job, but there's parts of this job that I'm having a hard time mediating. Like there's soft skills that I still need to develop. Like if you take VRI work, it's very different, especially if you have, one person or one account on Zoom, but it's a meeting full of 10 people all talking at the same time.
yep.
So
Yep.
you kind of figure out the jobs that it's like, can I mediate this? And if I can't, how can I learn to? Which workshops help.
Yeah. Workshops talking with other interpreters. Um, what is that? Because I feel like 3.5 years is still new, but you're not new. Like you didn't just graduate. You've done things, you've done enough. What novice interpreters, what emerging, what feelings or interactions, what do those feel like? Whether that's with an agency, with team interpreters, and or with deaf people. Do you disclose, never done this type of thing before, or I may need your patience here, or what are those interactions like for better or worse between, I think, mostly your team interpreter or the deaf people? What are you getting most gruff from, basically?
I
Um,
feel, yeah, go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Jill.
Savannah.
Okay. I feel like the first few months or maybe year that I went into the profession, I was like, transparency is the best thing. I come in, I'm a newbie to the job. I asked to work with an experienced team. This is the subject that I know. I just need to get used to this and like get past that fear and just, keep developing my skills. And I actually had feedback from a client that I didn't hear about until a couple years later, but they were like, I actually don't want to know that you're a new interpreter.
Interesting.
Because for me, that made me nervous as the client that you aren't confident in your work. And then that's going to affect me. And I thought that that was very interesting
Mhm.
because it wasn't something that I had thought about. And then I was like, okay, that can definitely be a factor.
But some deaf people want to know, so it's hard to
Yeah,
tell.
but I found for the most part, being transparent, usually the deaf person is the professional or they know more about what you're interpreting. Like they're the expert in the case. And if you just like go in with an open mind and you're ready to learn, and if there's certain things that you're just like, oh, I don't know this, and you write them down and just study them later, I think that just really helps with interpreter-client relationship too and trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. That first 1 to 2 years, I was saying, I'm a new interpreter, just so you know, telling my team, telling the deaf person. Um, but I was very lucky to land that staff job where
Yes.
he knew that I had only been interpreting for 2 years and it was me and him, and I am always the interpreter, so I don't ever have to say I'm new again. And since that job has ended, I don't think I've ever called myself a new interpreter to a team or a deaf consumer. Um, but it is funny because now that I don't live in Denver anymore, but I do go back to pick up work every once in a while. Um, Interpreters won't recognize me and they'll say, "Oh, you must be new here. I'll take all the voicing." And at my first 1 to 2 years, I would have been like, "Great, please." And it happened a couple months ago, and I was like, "Wait, no, I'm not new. No, I felt good about voicing today."
Nice.
Um, yeah, coming out of that job felt good. I was like, "Okay, I have the confidence. I did all of the voicing, and he was trying to talk over me." I was like, "No, I can do this. I am not a new interpreter. I'm new to you, but
Right.
yeah,
And let me prove myself and or fail, and then you can help me.
exactly."
Like, um, right. What is the support or lack thereof been like with working with teams? Are they nice?
I love teaming. I
Okay.
I just have to say
Are people nice?
I wish that more people loved teaming because I know that for some people it is really uncomfortable. I also do think that it was something that was emphasized in our program. We were taught the action of teaming and how to team. And I've noticed that maybe some people haven't been showed or taught like what that looks like and how to do it in a
Yeah.
respectful manner because sometimes teams can come off as kind of like passive aggressive or they just assume that you're new and that they're going to take over all the voicing.
Yeah.
And really, maybe it was the agency that told them that you were new. And then you get there and they were like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to have experience and to be able to carry your own. So, yeah. What do you think, Jill?
Um, it's a little different for me because most of the time when I team in person, at least, it's in rural Colorado, and almost everybody that I team with is nationally certified and super experienced and willing to drive 3 hours to come do a 1 hour job with me. Um, and so I feel very lucky, especially with that one specific agency. Everybody that I've teamed with has been incredible. It's just sometimes when I come down to Denver, and work with teams that I haven't before, that sometimes they're like
Oh
sussing
yeah.
me out. But and I also feel a little bit, I don't know, I don't feel lucky that we were part of the COVID graduating class, but it really did teach us how to team virtually. And I'm doing a lot of virtual work now. Um, so having practice in that in college was super beneficial.
Yeah.
Were you
Something that
do
we probably wouldn't have had if we did not graduate in COVID.
right. And you were
Yeah.
part COVID, part not COVID,
Yeah,
right?
our
Right when it
first,
all
Yeah.
yeah.
yep.
Started in 20, I mean, I think I started my college experience in learning ASL back in 2014. Started at a community college, then went to a university, then changed my major, and then went to Lansing Community College. But most of it was in person. It was like going to deaf socials. And then when everything was online on Zoom, we were like, whoa, this is different.
Yikes.
But it ended up being extremely beneficial when we moved to Colorado in 2021, fall of 21. So most of the time we were working in education and we were wearing the mask with the face shield still. Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's a very awkward time, but it was also very exciting too. I mean, you were coming back to schools where kids hadn't been back in a year and a half or 2 years, so it was different for them as well.
Yeah, a lot of unintended skills were developed. You
Oh
had
yeah.
to. You the internet thing, the working virtually is a whole skill in itself of the 2D, the multiple screens, the buttons, the all this stuff. Those are skills that hopefully folks took advantage of during that time. Um,
Mhm.
so you started in freelance. Jillian took a staff job, and I will say we don't even have to go into detail about that, but even as a new interpreter, if you somewhat fit the qualifications and it seems interesting, an opportunity like that is a really great opportunity to be a designated interpreter, be with someone all the time, get comfortable, all the perks of what you got to do in terms of, I think, I would imagine working into English for a deaf person feels a bit more comfortable now than it did before.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there were definitely pros and cons of it. Um, and when I interviewed for that staff job, I did not think I was going to get it. They were looking for someone
Right,
nationally certified with 5 years of experience.
right.
But I was like, I'm just going to interview. This is a job for like an outdoorsy camp type situation. And that's very much who I am and what I would love to do. If I wasn't interpreting, I'd probably be working in something like that.
Yep.
Um, and it was really, really good for my voicing, for my confidence. Like one day he would be like, "We're going to the news and we're doing a short little interview for this camp." And I was like, "Oh, okay, what do you want to say?" And he's like, "We're just gonna wing it." And I was like,
Give me a
"All
script.
right,
Thanks.
okay,
Ugh.
great."
Ugh.
um, but what am I gonna say? No.
I'm
Right.
curious, do you think that it was more comfortable because it was consecutive work too?
Mm.
Like there was a little bit more opportunity to like, figure out the context as well instead of like doing a platform.
Um, I wouldn't call it consecutive. Um, this person was pretty English, so he wanted to know everything I was voicing. He was checking. Um, which I know some more seasoned interpreters do not like the checking, but I was like, nope, we're on
Please.
air. Like, what am I doing this right?
Right.
Um, so that was a big plus. It was like I am going to be pushed in these situations and he's going to be okay with it because he wants me to interpret this. He's chosen me,
Right.
so let's do it. But also, when that job ended and it was time to go back out, I was like, oh, well, I know how to interpret and voice for you really, really well.
Right.
And
Now
that's
what?
all.
Right.
Others, I'm scared of now. And I feel like I've just kind of gotten past that threshold of, okay, I'm like comfortable with new people now. But um, yeah, so a lot of pros and cons in that staff job.
Yeah. And you've been mostly freelance, Savannah, but kind of in more concentrated places. But some people have that fear of freelance or let me go staff because then I get a paycheck and health insurance. And I mean, that's still a toss up for many interpreters, even years into their career. What made you stay more freelance?
I'm not gonna lie, I tried for a couple of staff positions.
Mm. Yeah.
Ultimately, I didn't get them. I won't go too far into it and get too far off topic, but I wasn't expecting interpreter interviews to be so difficult.
Yeah.
Especially when you're interpreting with both hearing and deaf people, and then they bring in an interpreter to interpret for you. And now you are the client in that situation too, and you can hear yourself because
Ugh.
they're voicing for you. But
And you're
it was
new
a very
and it,
cool, yeah, it was a very cool experience. And I still see the people that I did these interviews with, and I love going there. But I definitely have tried, and I will try again when new opportunities come up. But I am pretty happy freelancing as well. Like I said, there's some days where it's just like, you know what? I have energy and I have so much passion that I don't know what to do with, and I just want to work like 8 hours, and I just like book them back to back. And then maybe I do that for a couple days, and I'm like, crap, I just wore myself out, and now I need a day off. And it's
yep.
just really nice to have that flexibility too. And
Yeah.
like you said, there are going to be like the busy times are going to ebb and flow, but ultimately, as interpreters, we don't always, or freelance interpreters, we're not always able to work like a 9 to 5. Oftentimes, it's like, okay, I'm working 7 to 11, and then I have a 2 hour lunch, and then I have a job that's scheduled for 2 hours, and then it's like, oh, I only have 6 hours of work booked, so maybe I should work that night too. Or maybe that week was really slow, and that means that I'm working on the weekend after that.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah, it's some folks love all of that, and some people absolutely hate that type of like instability. Um,
I
I know
love
you
the
guys,
hustle.
it is a hustle. It's a weird hustle
I
because
love like the puzzle of here's this
yes,
job. Can you fit this in? Yes. And then I'm moving things. I That's my thing. I love it.
I've done it
it
for
is.
20 years and I've loved it. I don't think I know what it would feel like to not do it. And I've been in a staff position now for 3 weeks and it feels very strange and it's been a very hard transition for me. I like controlling my own schedule. That's a whole
Mhm.
other episode.
I can see.
Um,
Yeah, I get that though.
and that's something, I mean, when you were a student, and a lot of students ask, like, what work am I going to do? They feel like they need to figure it out before they graduate. And I don't know if you felt that way, like where I'm going to be and what I'm going to do. And then you uproot and move to another state, which adds a whole other layer of uncomfortable. Um, what work? I know you guys kind of veered into the educational for a bit, but like other than that, what felt safe to be like, okay, I'm gonna try that. This medical felt safe, or this, like what felt comfortable for starting out?
Yeah. I guess we could preface for people that aren't in Colorado, that they adopted the BEI back in 2021, actually the same year that we moved.
Nice.
Um, and so I got the BEI one basic in fall of 22. So it's like 6 months after I had started working in the field. And then maybe at about year two, I started being like, okay, I don't want to take serious medical jobs, but things like PT, OT, speech. I do have like a background in some of those things too, but I was like, let's do this. And then I slowly became like preferred interpreter when I didn't expect it, like a job that made me extremely nervous. And I was like, I don't want to mess this up. And
Mhm.
then later on, the client's like, no, actually, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me starting out, my agencies knowing that I was new was very helpful for those first 1 to 2 years because they would say, "Oh, you're gonna go." they would say, here's this job. It's with this deaf person that you know. And that
Nice.
would be a huge help, just being like, oh, okay, I work with this deaf person every day. I can go do, maybe it's not in the educational realm, but I know them, so I can go do this conference with them or something like that. Um, Open access felt a little bit safe because you usually have a team. Um, and I was very scared to voice those first couple of years. And that usually meant no voicing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you would accept a job and it was like, oh, it's actually for this company that is deaf. So you are voicing this entire thing.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
but that kind of thing felt safe, I suppose.
I guess
Yeah.
that's kind of why I brought up consecutive interpreting before too, is I have been handed the microphone like the previous episode that you record, and I was like, oh my God, this wasn't on the job description. And it is really hard to just like throw yourself into those situations. Maybe you've voiced and you have some voicing experience, but once you get a microphone in your hand, you just freeze. At least for me, it's been really hard to get used to that. So typically I stay away from those type of platform platform interpreting jobs.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think like the consecutive interpreting has been really helpful. I worked a job and I was like, oh my God, I like this job. And then the client ended up being like, I want you to be my interpreter. And I was like, oh, this topic isn't exactly my strength. I need to learn more about this. And they're like, that's fine. We'll fi like you'll get better. I want you to interpret for me though. And I think just instilling that confidence and then also having like a team in that situation too, where you can work back and forth and figure out kind of like how to perfect your work. That was really helpful. And especially because consecutive interpreting, if something goes wrong, you can kind of get it right away. You can see that, oh, maybe I made a mistake or I misunderstood something.
And I always tell students that like when they test you for certifications, you're in a video setting. You can't pause the video and stop them. But I'm curious if you've learned this that like, okay, it's scary, but I can say timeout. Okay, it's scary, but I can be like, what did you say? Can you say that again? Like you have control. You have a space to not be perfect,
Yeah,
even
I
if you're
think
new.
I think this only clicked for me in like the last year.
Nice. Nice.
But
Yeah.
it was like an epiphany though. I was like, oh
Mhm.
my goodness, because you are taught in school, you don't have control over the situations usually. You need to stay in your role. If an error happens, try to course correct as best as you can. But
Yep.
then there's also that part where it's like the hearing person, they speak English, and that's the language that they're thinking in. We're thinking in two languages right now and trying to translate. And so they can hear some of these awkward parts, and we don't want them to think that that's the deaf person at the same time. So I am definitely one to be like, hold on, interpreter needs to ask for clarification, or interpreter misunderstood that. Let me rephrase that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
It's
been
been a very recent thing for me to be like, okay, wait, I need to clarify. The interpreter just needs 1 minute to explain this thing real quick, or I need you to say what you just said again. And I'm still kind of working on that. I feel like right at this 3.5 year mark is where it's like, okay, I do have some control and leaning into that. Um, but in our ITP, we were taught, we had this class in person when it was in person. We would be in the hot seat, camera on, interpreting for the guest speaker. And at some point, maybe halfway through the semester, every single time we were up there, we had to stop the speaker and ask for clarification. I think that was helpful in a way, but in that setting, it felt kind of like platform interpreting. And that's a situation where you can't do it in. Doing it
Right.
virtually is what I struggle with the most.
Oh, same.
Yeah,
How?
exactly.
How?
yeah. I definitely think
Absolutely.
about that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's nice to have practiced it, maybe have canned answers or canned ways ready to what you're going to say. I like that. Oh, the interpreter misunderstood. Let me rephrase that. Like that's a wonderful way to say instead of being like wrong me like just say it and move on and keep going. And I think that's a shift that's happening in our field. I've had this conversation with others of like we are realizing we are human beings, that communication is messy. And even if it was two people speaking English to each other, it's messy. And so it's
Mhm.
okay. All of this is said with the caveat, obviously, of boundaries, ethics, respect. But stepping out of role is not the case anymore because that is our role. Because we want communication to be clear for all. And I think that's finally being understood by many people. And that's interesting that that feeling of like, okay, I can say something clicks after 3.5, 3 years or whatever. Um, because you're doing the job maybe more comfortably. So then another layer of the job shows up for you. And then next year, a different layer will show up for you. It's
Hmm.
interesting to know. I like that.
And just having the confidence to say,
Yes.
because those first 2 years saying I made a mistake is like, oh, all eyes are on me. I've messed up. Clearly, they know that I'm new. But now it's like, okay, we have enough confidence to say we're doing our job correctly. But here's one thing: we need 1 minute to just clarify one thing,
Very
without it feeling like
vulnerable.
I'm bad at my job.
It's vulnerable. Like, yeah. But this is such a note that anyone and everyone should take. I don't care what year you are in your work. Like, this is something that
Hmm.
even people who do have done this for years have a hard time saying or doing. And I think
Hmm.
that's hopefully something that's shifting in our field. Grace for ourselves, understanding from the deaf person of what our job is like. Like, this job is hard. And then more exposure to the hearing community for them to be like, oh, yeah, that's a hard, do whatever you got to do to make sure it's
Hmm.
clear. I think all of that is slightly changing more and more.
So nice to see. And I think some of it's changing too with these I know there was recently one in the area and I wasn't able to make it unfortunately. I worked, but there's a CDI or DI with hearing interpreter training and what that
Yes.
process looks like and bringing in some consumers that are like well known and like that you frequently interpret for and then they get in that situation and they're like, "Whoa, I didn't realize like what this actually looked like."
This is
And
hard what you
that was,
do.
it was a little, oh my goodness.
Yes.
It was a bit validating too at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I want, obviously, out of respect, I want this podcast to be accessible. But I also would love if a deaf person cared to have insight into what we even talk about and
Oh
what we
yeah.
go through.
Yeah.
Because yes, we're there for access and yes, we're there for them and because of them, but also it's a job that's hard. Um, what is different from the ITP than stepping into the real world? Plenty of things, but like, what's the biggest, like, oh
I
gosh.
don't, so I don't know if this is a Michigan versus Colorado thing. But I thought deaf people were going to be so mad at me for every mistake I made.
Oh.
I thought they were going to be so mad. Um,
I
and
don't know if it's a
coming out
state
here, it's
thing.
like
I think it's just a student thing.
probably,
Ooh.
probably.
Yeah.
Well, and we were
Um,
told we were also told like, different stories and of course interpreters experience. Once in a while you'll have a client that's not, they don't they have something to say.
Right.
yeah, it definitely happens, but not to the extent that I thought it was going to happen. Um, and anyway, anytime I've gotten feedback from a deaf consumer, it's been very polite and like, oh, you could work on this, or what do they really mean by this? I don't think I understood this. And it's not like, you're a bad interpreter. I never want to see you again. That's what I thought was going to happen. I also feel pretty spoiled being in a rural area, because even up here, I feel like, I don't know, the deaf community is just much more, they're always very appreciative of having an interpreter, um, which is a whole other topic that we can get into
Yeah,
at a
rural
different time.
versus
But
yes. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
interesting. I feel like I've noticed, yes, there aren't situations like we thought there were going to be in college where like, you start getting yelled at because you're a new interpreter and you're awful. Um, but sometimes you do, I feel like I've had the situation where the deaf person's like, it's not my responsibility to give you feedback. Like you're telling me that you're a new interpreter and that's fine, but this is your work. This is not
Yes.
my responsibility to like tell you how to improve. And that was really good to hear. Honestly, it was
Yeah.
really interesting because I was like, thank you for putting me in my place. Because sometimes you're just like you want to do good and you're just like, tell
Right.
me how I can be better, how I can work with you better. And they're just like,
yeah,
can you chill out?
yeah. We're just like
That's
puppies waiting to be trained.
but that's such a great thing to have been told. And then what a great thing to tell people who are graduating. Like, you may get unsolicited feedback. You might get feedback if you ask for it, and you might also be putting a burden on that person to have to analyze your work when they're just trying to get the information. Like it's not their job. That's such a
Mhm.
great thing to know. Yeah, I like that. How did you, I know you signed up with agencies and you did work. How did you join the community? Moving to a new place, even if you just stayed in the same place and you graduated and started working, you work through agencies, but like how to build relationships with the community. How did that kind of happen? Would you do
You
anything
and
specifically?
you introducing us to people.
Oh yeah, I was like, come here with me
You
with
helped.
this.
Yeah.
Um,
ASL climb, that was like a
oh
really
yeah,
awesome part. I
Mhm.
haven't been to in a really long time and I need to go again, but that was a
yeah,
really good way to meet people that I mean, you're new to an area, you don't have any friends, and now you're meeting all these people and you're like, this is great. And you're in a setting where you can just chat, you're not expected to interpret.
Yeah.
yes.
And being in a big city, you get to pair meeting deaf people with things that you like, right? Like you don't have
Imagine.
to, it's not just deaf socials. You can go out and climb. There's a deaf skiing and snowboarding group, and you can get into what you're already into with the deaf community, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Which is huge for a point that I always make of like, yes, absolutely, we should be learning and engaging with the deaf community. That's where we get the language exposure and all of that. But I have a hard time with the tokenism. You have to have a deaf friend. And in Michigan and or other areas where those groups of deaf people are smaller or older or aren't in the spaces that you would go ski and do pottery and like do the fun stuff. Here in Colorado, like I have deaf friends because they do the things I like. Like we have fun together. Um, that's huge. And I imagine that's in the same in California and in DC. So you may have to seek that out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know what I would tell to somebody in Michigan looking
right.
for that, you know.
Don't
Like
just
I'm sure there
befriend,
are deaf people with the same interest, but
right. No clubs.
right, yeah,
Yeah. Don't just befriend. That's my point. Don't just befriend deaf people just to do it. It
right.
feels
Right.
inauthentic and it's icky.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't like the idea of having like a token deaf
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah. What has been the easiest, most fun thing of the last 3.5 years? And what's been the hardest with this work?
Um, I guess it's my turn to go first this time, huh? The easiest has been moving to a new place. It's hard to make friends, and I don't really have, I have maybe one or two friends from Denver that is not either an interpreter or deaf. So it's been easy to make friends and feel comfortable in a new city because of this very small community that we're a part of.
Yeah.
Um, what's been hard? Um, oh boy.
One thing?
Yeah,
Right.
definitely
List?
boundaries with agencies is hard. Keeping up relationships, like if you have a busy week and you forgot to respond to this one agency, and now it's 3 weeks later, you're looking at your agencies like, who's going to send me work? And you're like, oh, well, I never responded to this agency. Of course, they're not going to send me any work. Um, just trying to keep up those relationships that you've built with agencies or people that get contracts, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, um,
Taxes,
Oh,
taxes have been hard.
forever, my friend. Forever.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, this time of the year actually is like the most stressful time because you did your annual taxes, and then we also just had to pay that first quarter too on the 15th. So
Yep.
it's like,
It's a lot. What's been the easiest or hardest for you, Savannah?
I actually was ready to say boundaries as well. I think that boundaries that I was able to set really early on that were easy because the people made them easy to set ended up setting me up for success down the road when I worked for them later on. And it also feels good when an agency says, like, you turn a job down because you're like, hey, I have this reason, this is a particularly triggering topic for me. And that's hard, especially like I mentioned before, sometimes the agency maybe interpret for them at some point. And so it's really vulnerable to say, that topic, I don't think I could interpret it and be able to keep in my role. So that was really
Yeah.
difficult. It's just like trying to balance, like being honest with yourself, taking jobs that you're qualified for. And even if you are qualified for it, maybe you're not mentally prepared for it. And that's been a challenge sometimes too. Because I wanted to work in mental health. Like that was my goal.
Hmm.
I was like, this is what I want to do. By the time I'm in year 3 and I have my BEI, I'm like, this is what I want to be doing. And I realized very quickly that maybe later.
Maybe when I stop crying so much. That was me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, if I am nearly brought to tears in the 10 minutes I've been here, shit. This is not where I should be working.
Yes.
I learned
Yeah.
that as well. So what you're saying, and that validates that I say this to students often is, and I teach workshops on this of like, agencies aren't the bad guy. They have a job as well, but you really need to know yourself and you really need to, no one's going to stand up for you. No one.
Mhm.
And it's great to have someone to text and be like, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? Like having people to ask those questions to, but you're naming things that are like, you had to know yourself, Savannah, to go, or learn and then accept that about yourself at this moment.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's huge.
Definitely a personal journey and then a professional journey on top of that where
Yeah.
you want to be seen. You're a younger person. Usually when I go into jobs, people immediately assume that I just graduated. And
Yes.
3.5 years in, you're not very far off, but 3.5 years has felt like a decent amount of time. That you're still like trying to prove yourself too. And so saying some of those things like, I'm not a good fit for this, or that topic makes me a little bit uncomfortable, can be kind of hard.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think that like the best part and the easiest part has been like teaming and communicating and some of the tools that we learned in our program. I don't think I really realized how valuable they were until I met an interpreter that didn't have those skills and that they hadn't were never able to learn
Yes.
them. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that was I've listened to all the podcasts so far from you, and I'm just like, yes, 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 yes. People
Good.
are talking about these things.
Mhm.
It's great. Um, and one of those things was definitely like I've lost my train of thought.
When
But it was
people, you learn what's valuable when you work with a team who sucks ass at X, Y, and Z and don't have the soft skills or don't have X, Y, and Z. And you're like, oh, that's why those things matter because not everybody does them. And holy moly,
yes.
that.
Yes. And also
Ugh.
taking workshops by deaf people as well, and then because then they're able to bring in, I've experienced this with an interpreter, or we actually were able to go to a workshop, another interpreter and and it was this deaf person that I knew, and she was teaching about like deaf interpreting and hearing interpreting and how to work with each other. And there were just so many things from that that I was like, don't go into your job thinking like, I know, especially when I just graduated, I was like, oh my gosh, when I work with Andrea, like, you are the best, you are amazing, you're my hero. And you can make interpreters really uncomfortable, like acting like that. And I guess kind of fangirling over it because we are like puppies. We just want to learn and we want to be good at what we do. But at the same time, even though you are a new interpreter, you have things to bring to the table. Like
Yes.
my team that has 5 years more experience than I do, has worked in more settings than I have, is a really skilled interpreter. Movie references come up, and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't even know what they're talking about. And she's got those. And then all of a sudden, some slang will come up because I've been hanging out with a lot of middle schoolers, and I'm like, I got this.
Yes.
So
That.
there's just, as a new interpreter, it's not always, oh, I'm going to learn something from this. Yes, but you also do bring things to the table that maybe you don't realize.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another struggle, going back to your last question, another hard thing has been managing personal relationships with interpreting. And it's a really hard job to explain to people who don't understand. Um, and this year, I've gone really hard with testing. I've taken so many tests this year. And I'm working with mentors and I'm trying to take on newer, higher risk jobs, um, and explaining to my partner why we can't hang out on Saturday. Um, it gets old for him, but it's also just so hard for me to explain where I am in my career and why I'm flying to Michigan to go take this test next weekend. Sorry, they rescheduled it. Like, um,
Yes.
just managing and trying to explain your job to family and friends is difficult.
It's kind of isolating sometimes. It does. It does
Yeah.
feel a little bit like you can explain things, but it's
They don't
such a
care.
niche profession that,
It's not
but
a
for
nine
us,
to
it doesn't really
five.
feel niche. Like people always
Right.
say that, you kind of forget, like, and then somebody will come up to you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, your signs, they were so pretty. I love watching you." And you're just like, I'm nervous."
Like, do you understand? I'm panicking. Yeah. What, um, all such good points. I'm just so, these podcasts have been great because I'm like, I bet you 15 people are listening right now that go, yes, me too. Like, that's all this is for people to go, oh, yes, okay. I'm not the only one. Um, what would you say? So you graduate, you're then flying the coop, you're out. There's nobody watching over you anymore. There's no one giving you feedback. You're not sending in videos for all the work. You go do the work, and that's improving your skill. But like, what else would you do? What else would you tell folks to keep their skills up, to try? How do you keep improving yourself?
Get a mentor,
Eh,
preferably deaf. If you can't get a deaf mentor, get a really good interpreter mentor. I am so lucky for the mentor that I have landed.
yes, she's amazing. I know who it
And
is.
I can,
Yes.
yes, I can text her about anything. I can be driving past her house and my car is breaking down and she'll come help me. Like it's not
Yep.
even just interpreter, it's just life too. But also I get pretty motivated by tests, so I will if I'm in kind of I don't know, a lull of work or I feel like my skills aren't going well, I might sign up for a test and then I have 3 months to kick it into gear and get good enough to pass or give it my best shot at this test, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I do wish, and you already did cover that in one of your previous episodes, like treating the interpreting profession kind of like how you treat other professions, where you have mentors and you have mentees in that field, and like the goal is that you're investing in these young professionals or these new professionals, that they're going to get better with your business. And unfortunately, it's been really hard to find that unless you're able to find a one-on-one mentor, which I just recently got one. I'm so excited to start with them. They're awesome. And I did do a cycle of core too, when I first moved to Colorado, because I was looking for um, other interpreters, trying to meet people,
Something.
looking for some guidance. And I guess there wasn't a way for me to be like, okay, I have something really, really specific that I want to experience without causing harm to a client because I'm such a new interpreter. How can I do that? How can I go with an experienced interpreter into a medical setting and see what it's like and know if I'm able to do it?
Right. Yeah. This is such good information for people who are still students or just graduated and or just validating of all of these things that we all talk about all the time. We can't name it enough. Get yourself a mentor. We can't say it enough of agency interactions may be tough. Like all of these things you're experiencing. And um yeah, I'm glad it's talked about.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you have put this podcast together. It's been like candy for me. Especially like
Exactly.
it's been a little bit more stressful lately, personally, but I just like sometimes you do feel a little bit isolated and you feel so into the job that you're doing, or maybe you're doing advocacy and you're, for lack of better words, beating a dead horse and it's just not going well and you're very fr and then you listen to other interpreters and you're just like, okay.
Us too. Yep. We're
we're
hoping to make
not we're not
change.
alone, and we're all hoping to like make change or
Yeah.
to encourage people that are able to make the change.
Yes. What would be any last words or advice you would have for students or people who are a few years behind you?
Don't be afraid to pack up and move if you can do it. There was
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, I don't really talk to a lot of our cohorts anymore from our program. Um, but I feel like there can be like pushback of like you moving to another state, and I know that it's kind of a sticky subject because Michigan has such high standards for certification that it makes it really hard for new interpreters. Um, and my mentee during school, I won't name drop her, but she has been going through it and trying to figure out like how she can get started in this profession. And she finally found out a way to do it. And she just had to make like some really hard decisions, but brave decisions too. And
Mhm.
just really glad she was able to do that. So yeah, sometimes you're gonna have to, I guess, change up your life a little bit.
It's a
Yeah.
journey that it might not be handed to you directly when you leave. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Do what you got to do, but draw boundaries. So don't do
Nice.
too much, but still do what you have to do.
Yes.
Yes.
But there's also like some great programs out there, like some grant funded programs where you can join a cohort for this many months and learn about medical interpreting or learn about this kind of interpreting. You just have to keep an eye out for it. And that's where having a good group of people that are exchanging information is good for,
Yeah.
because you might find something perfect for you like that.
Yeah. I feel like there's been a lot of workshops. This past year, I had applied for jobs and applied for workshops, and I'm just like, I can't get them. Well, not so much workshops, it's like cohort cycles, like
Mm,
say like a 6 week class that you want to
yeah.
take. A lot of them are geared towards brand new baby interpreters that aren't certified or towards people that are already in the field and they're honing their skills in something very specific. So yeah, just looking for those ones that are targeting new interpreters that want to do mentoring, they want to, help you get into the field.
Yeah. Because it's out there. It is a hustle. And I think maybe the biggest like smack in the face for people when they graduate is like, oh, now what? Oh, I
Mhm.
actually have to do the things. I have to be assertive and actually do the things. And even going and getting a staff job somewhere takes action toward. And then our skill isn't something that can take a rest. Like it's a constant evolution, even this many years in, absolutely is. Um, which I feel like people don't really know that when they're like, ooh, sign language is cool and I want to be an interpreter. There's a lot of other personal characteristics that come with this job that definitely help make you successful at this job.
Yeah. I didn't
Exactly.
realize
Like,
how
yeah.
hard it was going to be.
Right.
But I also didn't realize how rewarding it would be at the same time too.
Yes. That's a
Sorry,
good way
Jill.
to,
I didn't mean to cut you
yeah.
off.
Oh, no, you're good. I don't remember what I was going to say.
It's true though. It's really hard work, but like it's the human business and man, we get to like love some humans during this. So it's yeah. Um awesome. We're at about an hour. I like to ask
Mhm.
people at the end. I mean, I asked what you want to tell students. Was there anything else you'd like to add at the end here before we wrap up? It's just in general.
Mm,
We've covered a lot.
Just
I asked you a lot of
just do yeah,
questions.
just do your best, be honest. But also just try to be more confident.
Mhm.
That
One,
probably sounds like a broken record, but I need to take my own advice with that too.
yeah, confidence is everything. One critique is not, it doesn't mean you did terrible overall.
Nice.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's true. Because I think we're our biggest critic, and especially in the beginning of our career, it's very hard. I like to ask folks at the end what deaf business they like to highlight or deaf organization or whatnot. And you both have someone cool to highlight. Savannah, who do you have?
Yeah, so there is a deaf-owned business. She does baking. Her name is Ruth Jackson. I have heard her name all around the community here in Colorado. She also has a website, www.bakeitwithsass.com. But she teaches people how to do some baking stuff in sign language. And she also provides captions for people that aren't fluent in sign language.
Nice. Bake it with sass. And then who's yours, Jillian?
Yeah. I've actually never met him, but I've been very into pottery and ceramics lately. And I found a man named Kelvin on TikTok where he does pottery. He's deaf blind, does pottery, and he just like answers people's questions about being deaf blind and that kind of thing while he does it. And he sells some of his ceramics too. I think it's deafblindpottery.com. Do you have it written down, Andrea?
Yeah, deaf blind potter,
Deaf
Potter.
blind. deafblindpotter.com. Yeah, there's some cool little
Yes.
gifts that you could buy for people on there.
Nice. This was productive conversation. I hope it was like
Yeah.
therapeutic for you.
Oh my gosh.
It felt
Yeah.
therapeutic for me.
I will take any
Nerve-wracking,
opportunity to chat
but
with you.
yes.
I know it's nice to talk. It's nice to have been your teacher, to have not yelled, but have said these things as directly as I could to students. And then now you're doing it. And now I think light bulbs have gone off and it needs to be said from your mouth to tell the next people. Because me saying it, I'm just this old person who said it. They need to hear it from people who are like, no, really, it happened yesterday. Like,
Like, really,
that's
you will use it.
like really. So
Mhm.
that's really important. So I'm glad you guys were able to like say the things that I'm like, yes, say that thing. Good job. But
Yeah,
thanks so much for your wisdom,
Yeah.
your time, your energy.
of
Yes. Thank
course.
you
Thanks for
as
having us.
well.
Appreciate it.